Okay, is everyone ready? Okay, hello everybody. Okay, I'm getting great reaction. I thought you were all tired, but actually you gave me strength. So I would like to give my presentation. This year's Line Developer Day. Thank you for coming to the final session of this year's Line Developer Day. I am Ito, and I'll be talking about failure detection of microservice age with Test and Zipkin. So to start off, I would like to give you the conclusion of my presentation first. This is my proposal in the era of microservices. So let's look through it. So detecting failures more quickly over solving almost all of the bugs before release with test automation. So this is my conclusion. So let's go more deeply into this. So as a premise, you need to build quality in. That is the basics. On the other hand, MSA, we have to think about many things in the era of microservices. So how many of you know about MSA or microservice architecture? Please kindly raise your hand. So quite a lot. Thank you. So those of you who are not familiar with MSA, you'll be able to learn from this session. Those of you who already know, please talk to your colleagues and explain to them about MSA. So this session will be beneficial for both kind of people. So microservice. So we cannot foresee all the bugs beforehand. That is impossible. And because that is so in microservices, rather than foreseeing all bugs, it is more important to recover the services when failures happen. That is resilience. So resilience is most important for microservice. So we need to change our mindset with MSA. And on top of that, throughout this session and also in our daily activities, we are using automation of tests from these three perspectives. First is reducing MTTR. MTTR is short for mean time to repair. So this is a time from the failure occurs until it is repaired, and reducing this time is very good. And number two is achieving and enhancing resiliency of microservices. And number three is the most important, that is contributing to our business. So through test automation, improving quality is not the only objective, but we need to always think about contributing to the business. So with this assumption, I will talk about a story of a certain team who made improvements. So I will start with the background and challenges faced by the team, and I will then talk about the three initiatives that we took. First is test automation, karate, and Zipkin. And the details of each one of these points will be elaborated in the respective sections. So first, I will explain about the background and the challenges. The services the Line app that you use, Line Manga, Line Live, these family apps. In the background, we have about 2,500 microservices running in the backend. So with this much microservices running, there are outages happening, which might be transparent to you, but outages are actually happening. And actually, outages are increasing these days. One reason is our business is growing and expanding. That is the first reason of increase of outages. So we have microservices in the backend. So microservices are also growing and expanding. And more and more services are being invoked. So where these microservices meet with each other, the integration points are also increasing rapidly, and failures are happening in these integration points. So because of microservices, we are seeing more of these issues. And also, with expanding microservices, we are facing two issues. First is the difficulty to detect the failures. And the bigger problem is even if the failures are detected, it is difficult to distinguish which microservices caused the failures. So root cause analysis is becoming increasingly difficult in microservices. And on top of that, in our company, three confusions are happening due to microservices, which are still ongoing. And I'll go one by one. So when developing microservices, we cannot close and deploy. We can be closed and deploy with each service. That means people get less interested in integrated with other services. So as a use cases tend to become silos. So development teams say our microservice is complete, so we don't have to test. And also there's confusion in the test side. We have QA, manual testing. We have manual testing members. In manual microservice development, if a microservice is complete and API is complete, so we often ask QA testing people to do manual testing. However, this is quite cumbersome, because if we try to ask QA people to do the testing, they say, okay, please develop the UI that we can use the API with. Not only QA, but also product managers. They have a fixated thinking that tests must be conducted manually. Closer to the product, they have this thinking. Developers know that you can write programs to test. But because they don't know that, people ask us to develop UI just to run the API. Another point, so this problem exists. What actions should we take to counter this? There is a confusion here too. For example, how to detect failures, how to recover services quickly, and how to contribute more to businesses, users, and customers. So many people say they don't know how to do this. And this is where SET, our team, can contribute. SET is short for Software Engineering in Test. So from two perspectives, we are responsible for process improvement in each product development team. And from two angles, first is test automation and DevOps. So these are automation technologies. And XP also will be included here. And Scrum, Kanban, Lean. So these are agile methodologies. So by combining these two, we have the responsibility for improving processes.
So we, as SCT, we supported and succeeded in one example, which is in channel gateway. So I don't think what you know what channel gateway is. So let me give you the overview. Channel gateway is where we have many APIs and they are aggregated so that it is published in a usable manner to the external parties. So that means that in the background, I wrote names arbitrarily, but behind there are many microservices and they are all interrelated. So let me talk about what we did as countermeasures. So firstly, I would like to talk about failure detection with test automation. So what we initially did is to improve MTTR for microservices, and we try to utilize test automation. Specifically, this is developer testing. So we asked developers to write the test, and we did many actions for that. So in channel gateway, it is mostly written in Java. Therefore, for Java engineers, JUnit would be most easy to use. And also to call the API using Spring Boot. So combining the two, we asked the testing code to be created. And we provided the mechanism for creating such testing code. And after that, we would run them periodically via CI server, both in the production environment and also in the development environment. Every 5 or 10 minutes, the API test that was created would be run. And during that time, if the test fails, that means that there's a failure, and that information, using the chat channel, we would notify the channel gateway team about the failure. So by using test automation, we would do this testing. And this is a usual procedure that is used by many people, I think. But actually, I would like to show you the actual code, and I think you can get a better picture. So JUnit code, this is an example. So calling the API, and then this is a return. So it's looking at whether the code is correct. If it is not as expected, then through the chat, it would detect the failure. If you know Java, I think this is very simple. So it takes about 2 months to build this. As a result, how was it? So the good points were, firstly, so with CI and test automation, so if there's a failure, we can notify and it can be used as an alert. So we were able to confirm that it works as an alert so that we can notify people and alert them to take an actions. And since this is JUnit, some developers started to write the test code. And also, this was an unexpected benefit, but API test is run every 5 or 10 minutes. Therefore, we can detect any infrastructure vulnerabilities. For example,
if there's any vulnerability in storage system, if we are running the API test every 5 or 10 minutes, we can see that there is a weakness in the storage, and we can increase the capacity as necessary. On the other hand, there were some failures as well, some points to improve. Firstly, so this action didn't really get established in the team because most of the developers did not write the API test using this. And I asked them why, and they said that the JUnit code for the developers and also for the product managers, it is difficult to read and difficult to write. So they didn't want to use it. That was the reaction. Moreover, so this mechanism is where there's a failure and there's a notification made. That is the only mechanism here. So when the failure occurs, which microservice is causing it? There is no root cause analysis. So there is no drastic decrease in MTTR just with this. And lastly, we provided this mechanism, and we taught the channel gateway development team to use this. But we realized that we should delegate to them without us intervening too much. But that ended up being a failure because we were teaching them only for about 2 weeks. And with just 2 weeks of teaching them and guiding them, they would say, oh, do we have to do this as well? And the developers were getting panicked, and you cannot delegate too much. So a lesson learned is that even if you provide them just the mechanism, the product development team would not take the action. So we need improvement. So what we did is, using Karate, we simplified API test. So here is Karate finally. And I'm sure people would ask what Karate is. So let me explain what it is. Karate is an OSS framework, and it is dedicated to API testing. This is a BDD style framework. BDD stands for behavior-driven development. So this is a test model framework, and I will show you the model later on. So the reason why we chose Karate is, so after a failure occurs, we did a lot of interview with the Karate team, and we selected the tool. We tried many things and showed them many tools, and they said that if it is Karate, then for the developers and for the product team, it is easy to read and write, and the codes are very short, so it looked easy for them. So by using Karate framework, the JUnit-based test code was rewritten with Karate framework, but it's not just rewriting. SCT worked with the development team to solve issues one by one. For example, API test, how we don't know how to write the test. If the developer said that, then we would think together and we would guide them how to write the API test. We did that many times. And then writing the code. For example, if they say they want some utility code, if we find some needs, then we would think together, and then we would create the utility together, and then expand on it. Moreover, it's not written here, but for example, in doing the API test, what is the order of testing? So let's just start with what looks easy. That's one approach, but for example, maybe we can test those areas where we had failures recently. So such prioritization can be done together with the development team so that we can teach them. So what we did is
We went through the pain together, and experiencing the pain together is quite important. So let me actually show you the code. This is karate code, and JUnit code. What it's doing is the same, but what's written is completely different. So here, as you may know, maybe you don't know, but given and when, then, this is BDD specific format. So given means this the prerequisites for the test, and when, this is to call the target of the test, and then you do the assertion after that. So RSpec and Cucumber also write in this format.
And in addition to that, the API path and method post get, HTTP status, then status 200, 400. In this case, to do RESTful API testing with very short code. If one knows about API well, you write the test intuitively. And if you can compare these two, don't you notice anything? And isn't it like why? So you can have less code with karate. And of course, those of you who want to write Java, that's okay. But for our team, we preferred the BDD style karate. So together with the development team sharing the pain, we moved forward. What were the results? Let's look at the results. The reduced outages in production reduced drastically. But depending on calculation methods, depending on where you measure, however, the outages went down by 30 to 50%. And this team, we taught them and went through the pain together. And at the end of the day, they became self-organized. They could find the problem and find the solution by themselves and implement the solution and to come up with the next action. So they became a self-organized team. So even after the SET left, this team could find their own problem and solve them. And as a result, our SET team no longer had to stay with this team all the time. We just followed up when the team faced any problems. For example, responding to chat questions. So the support became much lighter. And another thing which was interesting, the product manager started writing test codes. And it's not only writing test code, but it's product management-wise, it became a very interesting point. So I would like to come back to it later. So we were able to see very good results. However, there was still some issues. We couldn't find out easily which microservices failed, so we could not find the root cause. That's why we went to the next phase, that is reducing MTTR with Zipkin. One moment, please. But what is Zipkin in the first place? I have another question to the floor. Who knows Zipkin? Actually, that's much more than I expected. So you are a very capable group. But there are some people who don't know, so I will explain. In system development, it's an OSS framework used in system development and can visualize and visualize latencies and dependencies in microservices. It's a tool. And by utilizing this tool, you can see the dependencies. So when failure happens, you can see where in the microservices the issue happened, and you can focus on that area to fix. And what we are developing, we are now developing an internal tool in the Sebas family and offering that to Channel Gateway. And we are using Zipkin there. And I would like to show you two examples. First is Sebas report. This is to the test report by adding Zipkin information. When the test fails or failure occurs, you would be able to distinguish which microservices was problematic. And I will show you the report later. And next is Sebas bot. This is a chat bot. You can kick the test via chat channel anytime. So this makes tests easier. So you can detect the failure places, and if you want to test immediately, rather than taking time to change the CI server, chatbot will be very convenient. So by combining these two mechanisms, we experimented whether we could decrease MTTR. And I will show you the Sebas report. This Sebas report I am showing for the first time. So you are the people outside our company who will be seeing the Sebas report before anyone else. So starting with this. So I think you have a good image. If you know what a test report looks like, you have a test project. Green is successful, red is failure. This red, we have to see the red area. And let's look into the red area. And like this, for each test case, you have breakdown information on the pass and fail of each test case. And this part is red. So this is where test is failing. So what is exactly happening? And if we go deeper, you can have API invocations and HTTP request response information can be seen. And if you look closely, you have red and green. And the problem is happening in the red areas. And please focus on this area. It says trace ID. This is what I told you before. This is the trace ID feature in Zipkin and its ID. So when invoking between microservices by adding Zipkin setting, the dependencies between microservices can be tracked. So this ID information is used for that. And if you click this, this is the actual image of Zipkin. And the dependencies are called from the top. And there are 3 dependencies here. The blue is successful, no problem. Red are problematic. And up till now, when test is executed and fails, we start with the top. It became red at the root. And before, we could not see any more details. But now, we can see the middle part. The bottom is blue and successful, and the middle layer is red. So we can actually distinguish where the problem is happening on Zipkin. That means we can tell the team responsible for this layer saying that this part is problematic and this is here as a log, and that would expedite things. And as a result, what happened? We could easily analyze the root cause of microservice failures. Before, we took like 1 week to analyze for complex cases. But by knowing from Zipkin where the problem is happening, we were able to reduce the problem-solving time to 1 to 2 hours, and I think we can even reduce this further. And if we can detect the problem, diagnose the problem early, we can recover quickly. So resilience also improved. Don't you think this is dramatic? However, it's not all rosy, because this was like opening the Pandoras box in a sense. Because the report I showed you before, that was easy to see, not easy to see, but to make it easier to look, we had to include Zipkin information to all related microservices. How many microservices? Did you know how many microservices were in the back end of our services? It was 2,500. So we have 2,500 microservices, and there's not necessarily only one API. So how many configuration changes do we have to do? And on top of that, the SET team only has 4 members. And can 4 people handle all this? It's impossible, right? So we are now really thinking about how to solve this. And we had a meeting on this just 2 days ago. And this is an ongoing problem. So up till here, we talked about failure detection with test automation and karate and Zipkin. So I told you about these 3 initiatives.
So what were the results? Let me look at the results again. So there was dramatic improvement for sure. So the failures in production declined in number. And it's not just in production, but karate itself is also in the development environment. So before the release, we can find the bugs and we can do the root cause analysis and we can release without bugs. So actually, outage reduction is larger than 30 or 50%. Moreover, channel gateway team is now self-running team. We don't need to support them anymore. What this means is that currently, every quarter, every 3 months, or every 1 year, the goal and milestone setting is done by themselves. And also, they can negotiate with the related parties and they can proceed by themselves. That's how sophisticated they are. Moreover, the task prioritization can be done. So, for example, they can prioritize in areas where there is high number of outages, or they can focus on areas which has larger impact on users. That's where they would start by writing the test code. So they can do that now. And what this channel gateway team did is actually the model team. They became the model team for others. They became the guideline. And the measures and programs and test codes that they are creating became the reference implementations. So this team became the model team for others. So we saw such dramatic improvements. And next, as I mentioned earlier, the product manager is now writing the test codes. So I talked with this product manager, and these are the key points. This product manager, originally he was an engineer, and if he has spare time, he wants to contribute to the team by writing codes. However, product manager is very busy, and for them to write production codes, that would hurt the team. So that is unrealistic. However, for them to write test codes, that's possible. as long as they know the grammar, in short time, they can write the test codes. Then they would not hurt the production code. And if it can be run, then that becomes asset for the team. And this is contribution to the team. Moreover, there's another important point. Until now, management, when they decide the specification, they would refer to wiki or specifications, or they would just follow what the team members say and they come into trouble. But that can be reduced because they can run the product and they can write their own code and they can see whether it works or not by themselves. This means that this heightens the sophisticatedness of the team for the product management. So test automation can make product management more elegant. So currently, karate is now being used in other teams as well, karate and sebas. So what is being used in bot, the messaging API, that area is starting to use karate little by little. And also externally, we are trying to increase the users. So internally, we have the term internal sales campaigns. So we are holding boot camp and hackathon events in order to expand the usage. And this is our future plan. So for Sebas' report, so this is about expanding Zipkin to other related microservices. But not only that, the logs and problems, if we track them, then we can detect the trends of microservices that are prone to problems. And we can combine AI machine learning so that we can generate test codes for microservices more in an automated manner. So that's what we want to do in R&D. And also Sebas bot. This is only in channel gateway and other teams are asking for it. So we want to expand the users. Moreover, karate and Sebas series, we want to utilize them to do process improvement for other product development teams. For us, it's not the end just by providing the tool. We want to also change the way of thinking about problem solving together with providing the tools. That's how we want to reinforce the team as a whole and the company as a whole. So let me summarize what I have talked about. So this is recap of what I talked about. So we want to detect failures more quickly by solving almost all of the bugs before release. So that's done with test automation. So based on what I talked about, let me break this down further. There are three things that I can say. Firstly, for better business, we can utilize technology. Next, we can tame complexity of microservices, and we can lead the process improvements of each product development team. We, SET, have been doing this, and going forward as well, we want to continue to do this. SET team is doing test automation not only for quality assurance. We believe that this is software engineering test. That's the name of the team. But we are doing innovation and fundamental improvement of technical of development with technical excellence and agile methodology. So we want to do more innovation so that line and line users can benefit from innovation and we can make you happier. That's all from me. But a way to be more happy or to contribute to SEBAS. If you have any questions about this, there is Ask the Speaker session after this, so please come and talk to me. So that is all from me, Ito. Thank you very much for your attention.